My parents refused to help when I was sick. Now they expect me to bankroll and raise my golden brother's abandoned kids. Sup, Reddit. 6 years ago, my parents told me to figure out my own medical crisis while they went on vacation. Last week, they showed up demanding I fund raising my brother's kids after he abandoned them via email. I gave them their own words back, and what followed was a complete shit show that exposed exactly who these people really are. I'm 31 male and haven't spoken to my parents in almost 6 years. Not a single word. No birthday calls, no holiday texts, no awkward run-ins at family gatherings, because I stopped going to those too. Complete radio silence. The breaking point? Type 2 diabetes diagnosis when I was 25, between jobs, and my insurance wouldn't cover the medication I literally needed to stay alive. But before we dive into that particular disaster, let me paint you a picture of my family dynamics, because this whole situation makes way more sense when you understand the pattern. My parents, Richard and Patricia, are your stereotypical suburban middle-class couple who spent 30 years building what they considered a comfortable retirement. Dad worked in manufacturing management, climbed the ladder over decades, ended up making decent money. Mom did accounting for a regional hospital network. Steady work with good benefits. They retired at 62 with a paid-off house in a nice neighborhood, 2 cars that were only a few years old, and enough retirement savings to take annual cruises without even blinking at the cost. They weren't struggling financially. Not even close. They had that comfortable middle-class retirement where you can afford pretty much anything you want within reason. The kind of retirement most people dream about. No mortgage, no debt, pension coming in, 401k sitting there as backup. They were set. My older brother Wyatt is 39, 8 years older than me. That age gap meant we were never really close growing up. By the time I was starting middle school and actually developing a personality, he was already moved out and doing his own thing. We existed in the same family but lived basically separate lives. Growing up, I always felt like the practice kid. You know how some families have that dynamic where the first kid gets all the attention and the second one just kind of exists? That was us. Wyatt was the golden child who could do no wrong. Every milestone he hit was celebrated like he'd cured something major. Meanwhile, I could bring home straight A's and get a pat on the head and a, "That's nice, dear." The favoritism was blatant, but nobody acknowledged it. When Wyatt needed money for anything, car repairs, rent assistance, whatever, my parents were there immediately with open checkbooks. When I needed help, suddenly it became a teaching moment about self-reliance and personal responsibility. I remember being 16 and needing $200 for a school trip. It was this educational thing all my friends were going. I'd been looking forward to it for months. My parents said no. Too expensive. They didn't see the value in it. I needed to learn that not everything in life gets handed to you. 2 weeks later, Wyatt asked for $800 to help with his security deposit on a new apartment. They gave it to him same day. When I pointed out the inconsistency, Dad said it was different because Wyatt was an adult with adult responsibilities. I was just a kid asking for vacation money. That kind of thing happened constantly. Different standards, different rules, different everything depending on which son you were talking about. I learned pretty early that I couldn't rely on them for support. Everything I got, I had to earn or fight for myself. Fast forward to when I was 25. I'd been working at this tech startup for about a year and a half. Not a huge company, maybe 30 employees, but it was growing and I was learning a lot. The pay was decent, benefits were okay, and I was building experience in my field. Then the funding dried up. Investors pulled out. Company couldn't make payroll, and we all got laid off with about 2 weeks' notice. Not ideal, but these things happen. The job market was decent at the time, so I wasn't panicking. Started applying places immediately, had my resume updated, began networking. The plan was to find something within a month or two, bridge the gap with savings, and move forward. Then I started feeling off, constantly thirsty, tired all the time, losing weight without trying, having to use the bathroom every hour. Classic diabetes symptoms, but I didn't recognize them at first. Thought maybe it was stress from the job loss. After 2 weeks of feeling progressively worse, I went to an urgent care clinic. They ran some tests, my blood sugar levels were through the roof, and the doctor looked at me with that expression medical professionals get when they're about to deliver bad news. "You have type 2 diabetes," he said. "Your A1C is 11.2. That's dangerously high. We need to get you on medication immediately." He wrote prescriptions for 2 different medications plus testing supplies. Told me I needed to check my blood sugar multiple times daily, follow a strict diet, and come back in 3 months for follow-up. Then he handed me the prescriptions and wished me luck. I took the scripts to the pharmacy, figuring they'd be expensive but manageable. The pharmacist ran them through my insurance, the COBRA coverage from my old job that I'd signed up for, and came back with a total that made my stomach drop. "That'll be $847 for the month's supply of everything," she said cheerfully. $847 for 1 month. My unemployment benefits were $380 weekly. Even with budgeting, I was looking at maybe $1,600 monthly income. Rent alone was $850. This medication would take more than half of what I had left after housing. I asked about generic versions, discount programs, anything to bring the cost down. She tried a few things, got it down to $780. Still completely unsustainable. I told her I'd have to figure something out and left without the medications. That night, I spent hours researching options. Patient assistance programs that would take months to process. Discount cards that only worked at specific pharmacies. Canadian pharmacies that might be legit but also might not be. Nothing was going to solve my immediate problem of needing medication now and not being able to afford it. I had about $3,000 in savings. That was supposed to be my emergency fund for exactly this kind of situation. But if I spent it all on medication, I'd have nothing for rent, food, or the unexpected expenses that always pop up. I was looking at choosing between my health and having a place to live, so I did what any reasonable person would do when facing a genuine medical emergency with no good options. I called my parents. Not asking for a handout, not expecting them to cover everything forever, just looking for temporary help while I got back on my feet. I explained the whole situation, the layoff, the diagnosis, the medication costs, how I had job interviews lined up but needed a bridge for maybe 3 to 4 months until I got hired somewhere with better insurance. I laid out actual numbers. If they could cover maybe $600 monthly for 3 months, that would give me enough breathing room to make everything else work. Dad's response came after about 5 seconds of silence. "You're 25 years old," he said, voice flat. "You need to figure some things out on your own. Don't rely on us just because we're your family." Mom was on speakerphone, and she jumped in with her addition. "We've already raised you. You're an adult now. This is your responsibility to handle." I sat there stunned, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what I was hearing. This was a medical emergency. I wasn't asking them to fund a vacation or buy me a car. I needed medication to not go into diabetic shock. And they were lecturing me about personal responsibility. "So you're saying you won't help at all?" I asked, just to be crystal clear. "We're saying you need to learn to manage your own problems," Dad replied. "We can't bail you out every time life gets difficult." Every time? I'd never asked them for major help before in my adult life. This was literally the first time I'd requested anything significant since moving out. "I have diabetes," I said slowly, trying to make them understand. "Without medication, I could end up in the hospital or worse. This isn't me being irresponsible or lazy. This is a genuine medical crisis." "Then you'll figure out what you need to do," Dad said. "We didn't raise you to come running to us whenever things get tough." Mom added her final gem. "Maybe this is what you need to learn: independence. We've spent too many years enabling you." Enabling me? By not helping me with anything? The logic was non-existent, but I was past the point of arguing. "Got it," I said. "Thanks for nothing." I hung up. That was September 2017. Last time we spoke until 6 weeks ago. Here's what happened in those 6 years. I figured it out on my own, just like they told me to. Sold my car and bought something cheaper, freeing up $200 monthly. Moved to a smaller apartment with a roommate I found through work, cutting rent in half. Applied to every patient assistance program that existed. Filled out mountains of paperwork. Waited through their processing times. Started buying medication from Canadian pharmacies at a quarter of the US price. Found websites that connected Americans with legitimate Canadian pharmacies that would ship across the border. Was it legal? Gray area. Did I care? Not even slightly. I was choosing between following pharmaceutical industry pricing schemes or staying alive. Pretty easy decision when you frame it that way. The first few months were rough. Managing diabetes while dealing with the stress of unemployment and family rejection was like juggling chainsaws while walking a tightrope. Blood sugar all over the place from the stress. Constantly worried about money, wondering if I'd made the right choices. But I handled it, found creative solutions, cut every possible expense, made it work through sheer determination. I landed a new job after 3 months of searching. The insurance was better, brought my medication costs down to manageable levels. I threw myself into work, proved myself valuable, and got promoted within a year. Then again, 2 years after that. Built a reputation as someone reliable who delivered results. Met my now wife Natalie at a friend's barbecue when I was 27. She was smart, funny, had her life together, and didn't come with any family drama attached. We clicked immediately. Started dating, moved in together after a year, got engaged 6 months after that, bought a house when I was 28. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, good schools nearby for the kids we were planning to have eventually. Got married at 29 in a small ceremony with Natalie's family and our close friends. My parents weren't invited. They didn't even know it happened until someone probably told them months later. Built an actual life. The kind of stable, successful life my parents always said they wanted for me. Just did it completely without their input or support. My parents? Didn't hear from them once. No calls, no texts, no attempts at reconciliation. They clearly meant what they said about me handling my own problems. Fine by me. Then 6 weeks ago, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Opened it to find a message from my mom. We need to talk. It's urgent. I stared at that text for a solid minute, sitting there on my couch with Natalie beside me watching a movie. 6 years of complete silence and now something suddenly urgent? My first instinct was to delete it and move on with my life. I didn't respond. She texted again 2 hours later. This is about your nephews. Please call. That got my attention. Wyatt had 2 kids. I knew that much from the occasional Facebook stalking I'd done over the years. Boys, ages 8 and 6 now. I'd never met them. Didn't even know their names until I looked at the Facebook photos Mom had posted over the years that I'd never bothered to engage with. They looked like normal kids. Smiling in photos, playing at parks, the usual family stuff. I called. Curiosity overcoming better judgment. Part of me wondered if something had happened to Wyatt. Part of me wondered if the kids were in danger. The responsible part of my brain kicked in despite my better judgment. Finally, Mom said when she answered. Not even a hello first. We've been trying to reach you for days. You sent one text, 2 hours ago. 2. Well, this is serious. We need to talk about Wyatt's children. Can you come over? We should discuss this in person. I'm not driving to your house. Whatever you need to say it now. She sighed, like I was the one being difficult here. Fine. It's about the boys, your nephews. They've been living with us for the past 2 months. Okay? And we need help. We're not young anymore. Raising 2 children at our age is exhausting. Where's Wyatt? Another sigh. That's complicated. Uncomplicate it. She launched into the whole story then. Wyatt's wife Jennifer had died in a car accident 8 months ago. Some guy ran a red light, T-boned her car, she died at the scene. Tragic, horrible. The kind of thing nobody should have to go through. Wyatt had apparently been struggling to cope ever since. Started drinking heavily, according to Mom, though she said it in that tone that suggested she was downplaying the severity. Knowing Wyatt's history with substances, he'd had problems in his 20s that my parents had always excused. I suspected drinking heavily meant something pretty severe. Then 2 months ago, Wyatt sent my parents an email. Not a phone call. Not an in-person conversation. An email. Said he needed time to figure things out. That he couldn't handle being a parent right now. That the boys were better off with their grandparents while he got his head together. And then he just disappeared. Stopped responding to calls and texts. My parents had no idea where he was. Could be staying with friends. Could be in a motel somewhere. Could be halfway across the country for all they knew. He'd essentially abandoned his kids via electronic communication and vanished. Classy move, Wyatt. Really stepping up to the plate there. So what's the plan? I asked Mom. Is he coming back? Is this temporary or permanent? We don't know, she admitted. He's not responding to us. His phone goes straight to voicemail. We've had the boys for 2 months now and we're drowning. That sounds difficult. What do you want from me? We need you to help financially, she said, getting to the point. These boys need things. Food, clothes, school supplies, activities. We're looking at about $1,500 monthly for their expenses. Plus, we're having to look into therapy for them because they're obviously traumatized. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. The situation was so absurd that laughter was the only appropriate response. You want me to send you $1,500 a month? These are your nephews. Your family. Family takes care of family. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. You want me to send you $1,500 a month? These are your nephews. Family takes care of family. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. That's interesting, I said. Because 6 years ago, when I needed help with $800 monthly for medication, you told me to figure it out on my own. Said you wouldn't bail me out every time life gets difficult. Silence on the other end. That was different, Mom finally said. How? Explain to me how it was different. You were an adult who needed to learn responsibility. These are children. So when I was between jobs with a medical emergency, that was a teaching moment. But when Wyatt abandons his kids, that's when family steps up. This isn't about keeping score. Dad's voice came through. Apparently, I was on speaker. These boys need help. Then help them. You're retired with money in the bank. You told me you couldn't help with $600 monthly when I was literally sick. Now you're asking for $1,500 for kids that aren't even my responsibility? We're on a fixed income, Mom said. We can't afford to raise 2 children. So figure it out on your own. Don't rely on me just because we're family. I used their exact words back at them. The silence that followed was beautiful. That's different, and you know it, Dad said, voice tight. How? Please explain how this is different from what you told me 6 years ago. Because we actually helped you when you were growing up, Mom snapped. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe us. I owe you? For doing the literal bare minimum that parents are legally required to do? You chose to have kids. That's not some debt I need to repay. We're not asking you to raise them, Dad said. Just help financially while we figure out a long-term solution. And what happens when there's no long-term solution? What happens when Wyatt doesn't come back and these kids need to be raised for the next 10 years? You think I'm going to keep sending checks? Your brother is going through something difficult, Mom said. He'll get himself together. Maybe this is what he needs to learn independence, I said, throwing her words from 6 years ago right back at her. Maybe you've spent too many years enabling him. Don't be cruel, she said. I'm not being cruel. I'm being exactly as supportive as you taught me to be. Remember? You can't bail people out every time life gets difficult. This is completely different, Dad said. These are innocent children. Then be their grandparents. Use your comfortable retirement savings that you couldn't spare $600 from 6 years ago. You'll figure it out. We need your help, Mom said, and I could hear the desperation creeping into her voice. No, you need my money. There's a difference. You don't actually want me involved in these kids' lives. You just want me to fund their existence while you two maintain your lifestyle. That's not fair, she protested. You're right. It's not fair. Just like it wasn't fair when you told your diabetic son to figure it out alone while you went on a cruise. But here we are. We didn't go on a cruise right after that, Dad said. 3 months later. Close enough. The point is, you had money for vacations, but not for medication. Now you have money for your retirement, but not for your grandkids. Funny pattern. If you won't help, just say so, Mom said coldly. I won't help. There. I said it. Then you're exactly as selfish as we thought. Good. I learned from the best. I hung up before they could respond. Natalie had been listening to the whole conversation. She walked over and hugged me, and I realized my hands were shaking. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just didn't expect that to feel so satisfying. She laughed. You gave them back everything they gave you. 6 years, I said. 6 years of nothing. And they show up asking for money like we're suddenly family again. The next week, they tried a different approach. Mom called and left a voicemail that was clearly rehearsed. Her voice was breaking in all the right places, emotional but calculated, hitting every manipulation beat perfectly. Sweetie, it's Mom. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, about what happened 6 years ago. And you're right. We should have helped you. We should have been there when you were sick. I don't know what we were thinking. Maybe we were scared. Maybe we didn't understand how serious it was. But we failed you, and I'm sorry for that. Pause for dramatic effect. Sniffle. I know I can't take back what happened. I know we hurt you, but this is a chance for us to move forward as a family, to do the right thing together. These boys need us. They need all of us. Please call me back so we can talk about this properly. I love you. I played that voicemail for Natalie. She looked at me with raised eyebrows. That's possibly the most manipulative thing I've ever heard, she said. She's not even apologizing for what they did. She's apologizing for your feelings about it. Sorry we failed you, I said. Not sorry for telling me to handle my medical emergency alone. Not sorry for going on a cruise 3 months later. Just sorry that I felt bad about it. And immediately followed by asking for money again? Classic non-apology. I'm sorry, but here's why you should do what I want anyway. I didn't call back. The message had been carefully crafted to hit emotional buttons while avoiding actual accountability. If she genuinely wanted to apologize, she would have done it without immediately pivoting back to their demands. 3 days later, they showed up at my house. Just appeared on my doorstep Saturday morning like they had any right to be there. Natalie answered the door while I was in the shower, came upstairs looking equal parts annoyed and amused. Your parents are here, she said. Should I tell them to leave or do you want to handle this? I'll handle it, I said, getting dressed. This should be interesting. I went downstairs to find them sitting in my living room like they owned the place. Dad was looking around at the furniture, the TV, the framed pictures on the walls, assessing everything. calculating what my life was worth. Mom was perched on the edge of the couch, clutching her purse like she was afraid something might jump out at her. "Nice place," Dad said when he saw me. "Doing well for yourself. Must be nice having all this while your nephews struggle." "Right. Starting with guilt trips immediately. Classic move." "What do you want?" I asked, not bothering to sit down. "We want to talk," Mom said. "Have an actual conversation instead of fighting over the phone. We drove an hour to get here. The least you can do is hear us out. There's nothing to talk about. I'm not giving you money. You could have saved the trip. We're not just asking for money," Dad said, leaning forward. "We're asking you to step up for family. These boys are your nephews, whether you acknowledge them or not. They've lost their mother. Their father abandoned them. They need stability and support. And I'm your son, whether you acknowledge it or not. Didn't seem to matter 6 years ago when I needed stability and support." Mom's expression hardened. "You're really going to hold that over us forever? We made one mistake and you're going to punish us for the rest of our lives? One mistake? You told your diabetic son to figure out his medical crisis alone. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. You chose your comfort over my health." "We made a mistake," she repeated, like saying it again would change reality. "We admit that, but you can't seriously compare helping with medication to raising two traumatized children. The situations aren't even remotely similar." "You're right. One situation involved $600 monthly for 3 months, $1,800 total. The other involves $1,500 monthly for years, potentially. Tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe more. The expensive one you want help with. The cheap one you couldn't be bothered." "Money isn't the point," Dad said, voice rising slightly. "Money is exactly the point. You have enough to raise these kids. You just don't want to spend your retirement savings on them. You want me to fund it so you can keep your lifestyle intact. The cruises, the comfortable retirement, all of it." "That's not true," Mom protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then use your own money. You're not broke. You're comfortable. You have savings, pensions, paid off assets. Prove me wrong." They couldn't. We all knew they had the resources. They just didn't want to use them. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. "What about the boys?" Mom finally asked. "Don't you care what happens to them? They're innocent in all of this. They didn't ask for any of this to happen. I care that they're in a bad situation. I don't think that situation is my responsibility to fix financially. Wyatt abandoned them. That's on him. You're their grandparents who spent years enabling his behavior. That's on you. I'm their uncle they've never met because you cut me out of your lives. That's not on me." "Family is family," Dad said, pulling out what he probably thought was his trump card. "You're right. And when your family member had a medical emergency, you told him to handle it alone. Told him he needed to learn responsibility. Told him you wouldn't bail him out just because life got difficult. When your other family member spent his entire adult life making bad decisions, you enabled every single one. Gave him money whenever he asked. Made excuses for his failures. And now you're shocked that he turned out to be someone who abandons his kids via email. We did the best we could with both of you," Mom said. "No, you did the best for Wyatt and told me to figure it out. Different standards, different rules. Same pattern my whole life. We went back and forth like this for another 20 minutes. Every angle they tried, I shut down. Every guilt trip, I redirected with their own logic from 6 years ago. Every attempt to paint me as the bad guy got flipped back onto them. Dad tried the practical approach. These boys will remember who was there for them and who wasn't. You're building resentment that will last forever. Like the resentment I built when you told me to figure out my medical crisis alone? That kind of lasting resentment? Mom tried the emotional manipulation. We're getting older. We won't be around forever. You'll regret this when we're gone. You know what I'll actually regret? Not standing up for myself 6 years ago. Not calling you out on your selective support. Not recognizing sooner that you only consider me family when you need something." Dad stood up, clearly frustrated. "This conversation is going nowhere. You've made your decision. You're choosing to abandon these children. I'm choosing not to enable Wyatt's irresponsibility with my money. Same way you chose not to enable my medical needs with yours. Full circle." Eventually, they realized they weren't getting anywhere and left. Mom stood up, gathered her purse, looked around my house one more time, like she was cataloging everything she could use against me later. As they walked to the door, she turned around one final time. "You've changed," she said, voice cold. "You used to be such a sweet boy. So kind and caring. I don't even recognize you anymore." Yeah, well, life changes people. Especially when your parents tell you to figure out life-threatening medical issues on your own. Turns out that kind of abandonment really builds character. We didn't abandon you. You told your diabetic son with no insurance that you wouldn't help with medication costs because he needed to learn responsibility. What would you call that? She didn't have an answer. They left, and I watched them drive away from my window. Natalie came and stood beside me. That was intense, she said. That was necessary. They needed to understand that I'm not going to fold just because they show up and demand things. Do you think they'll keep trying? Probably. People like them don't accept no easily. They're used to getting what they want through guilt and manipulation. I was right. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've gotten texts from extended family members I barely know. Aunts and uncles who haven't spoken to me in years suddenly have very strong opinions about my obligations. Cousins I met maybe twice at childhood birthday parties are lecturing me about family values. The messages follow predictable patterns. Those poor boys need help. How can you be so heartless? Your parents raised you, and this is how you repay them. Family takes care of family. Nobody asks why my parents with a comfortable retirement and paid-off house need financial help from their son. Nobody questions why Wyatt abandoned his children or where he disappeared to. Nobody wonders why I went 6 years without contact with my family or what might have caused that. Just blanket assumption that I'm the bad guy. One aunt sent me a multi-paragraph text about how blood is thicker than water and how I should be the bigger person. I didn't respond. Another uncle called me directly, left a voicemail about how disappointed my grandparents would be if they were still alive to see me turn my back on family. That one almost made me laugh. My grandparents always liked Wyatt better too. Pattern recognition isn't that hard. The most aggressive messages came from my mom's sister. 5 texts in one day, each one more guilt-trippy than the last. Started with gentle persuasion.
Because the guilt is overwhelming. What stops you? Jasper asked, and I realized this was a test. He needed to know if Mom was serious about changing or if this was elaborate guilt-driven theater. My son, my patients at the library who count on me for book recommendations and computer help. The monthly donation I make to therapy funds. The fact that if I gave up now, your suffering would have been completely meaningless. She looked directly at Jasper. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure I never do it again, and I can try to help others avoid making the same mistakes. That's all I have. Jasper nodded slowly, made a note in his laptop. Thank you for being honest. The book took Jasper another year to write. When it was published, it made a small splash in certain internet communities, sparked discussions about doxing and amateur investigations and the danger of being certain you're right. Mom bought 20 copies, gave them to her therapist, her book club, the neighbors she'd wronged. People should know what I did, she said when I asked why she was distributing evidence of her worst mistake. And they should know how easy it is to become me if you're not careful. The book dedication read, "To the families I hurt, and to anyone who thinks they're always right, you're not. Learn from my mistakes." Some people in the neighborhood read it and distance themselves from Mom again. Others read it and seem to respect her more for taking responsibility. The library where she worked had an awkward staff meeting where her boss asked if the book's portrayal was accurate. "Yes," Mom had said simply. "All of it." "And you've changed?" "I'm trying to. Every day." She kept her job. Barely, but she kept it. 3 years after Jasper first appeared on our doorstep with his cryptic message, I came home to find him and Mom working on a presentation together. They were speaking at a local community college about the dangers of internet vigilantism. "We're calling it When Certainty Becomes Cruelty," Mom explained. Jasper talks about what happened to him. I talk about why I did it and what I've learned. "How's it going?" "Terrifying," Mom admitted. "Standing up in front of people and confessing to the worst thing I've ever done. But necessary." Jasper looked up from his laptop. "Your mom's really good at explaining her thought process. Helps people understand how easy it is to fall into that mindset." They did the presentation 6 times over the next few months, at colleges and libraries and community centers. I went to one of them, watched from the back as Mom stood at a podium and methodically destroyed her own reputation in front of a room of strangers. "I was wrong," she said, again and again throughout the presentation. "I was absolutely certain I was right, and I was completely wrong, and a family was destroyed because of my mistake." During the Q&A after one presentation, someone asked Jasper, "Have you forgiven her?" He thought about it for a moment. "I'm working toward it. Forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a process. Some days I'm closer than others." "And you?" the person asked Mom. "Have you forgiven yourself?" "No," Mom said simply. "I don't think I ever will. But I'm learning to live with what I did and use it to help others avoid my mistakes." After the presentation, as we were all having coffee together, Jasper said something that stuck with me. "You know what the weirdest part of all this is? Your mom destroyed my life, but now we're working together to prevent other people from doing the same thing. 5 years ago, I never would have imagined this." "Is it helping?" I asked. "Doing these presentations?" "Yeah, turns my trauma into something useful. Makes the suffering feel less pointless." Mom was quiet on the drive home. Finally, she said, I don't deserve his forgiveness. Probably not, I agreed. But he's choosing to move forward with you anyway. That's his choice to make. I'm so tired, Levi, of carrying this guilt, of trying to be better, of constantly monitoring myself to make sure I don't slip back. That's what change feels like. It's exhausting. She laughed bitterly. I used to be someone people feared. Now I'm just someone trying not to fuck up again. Is that so bad? No, it's just different. Hard to adjust to. 5 years after Jasper's visit, I got engaged to Kira. Mom cried when I told her happy tears this time. You found someone good, she said. Someone who sees you for who you are. She's met you at your worst and stuck around, I pointed out. That's saying something. I'm glad. You deserve happiness. Jasper and Emma came to the engagement party. It was still a little weird, having the guy whose life my mom had destroyed at my celebration, but it also felt right somehow. Like we'd all moved past the worst of it and found something resembling peace. Your mom asked me to be part of the wedding party, Jasper told me. As a reader during the ceremony. I hadn't known that. You said yes? Yeah. Seemed like a good way to show that people can change, and relationships can heal even after terrible shit happens. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Mom walked me down the aisle, and I could see tears streaming down her face the whole time. During the reception, she gave a toast. My son is a better person than I ever was, she said. He learned from my mistakes instead of repeating them. He chose kindness when I chose cruelty. He's everything I wish I'd been. Later, during a quiet moment, Jasper approached Mom. I wanted to tell you something. I forgive you. Mom looked up at him stunned. What? I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I'm tired of carrying anger. Because you've genuinely changed. Because holding on to hate was poisoning me. Not you. Mom started crying. I don't know what to say. Say thank you and keep being the person you are now, not the person you were. They hugged, and I watched my mom cry on the shoulder of the man whose life she destroyed. It was messy and complicated, and probably not how things were supposed to work, but it was real. After the wedding, after Kira and I returned from our honeymoon, I stopped by Mom's house to check in. She was in her garden, actually growing vegetables successfully for once. How are you? I asked. Good. Really good. She smiled, and it reached her eyes in a way it hadn't for years. I'm not the person I was. I'm not sure who I am now, but I'm figuring it out. That's all any of us can do. She pulled a tomato off the vine and handed it to me. This one's actually edible. I'm getting better at this growing things instead of destroying them. We sat on her porch, eating sun-warm tomatoes, and for the first time in years, everything felt okay. Not perfect. There were still days when Mom struggled with her old instincts, still moments when the guilt threatened to overwhelm her. But she kept going, kept trying, kept being better. A few months later, I got a text from Jasper. Starting grad school in the fall, criminal justice. Going to study wrongful accusations and how they happen. Your mom inspired me. I showed Mom the text. She read it 3 times, then set the phone down carefully like it might break. He's turning what I did into something positive. He's resilient. He shouldn't have had to be, not because of me. No, but he is anyway, and that's what matters now. Years passed. Mom continued therapy, continued her presentations, continued her quiet work of being a better person. She never became feared again, and that was the point. She became Dorothy, who worked at the library and gave good advice and sometimes shared vegetables from her garden. Just a normal person trying to do right by the people around her. Jasper completed his grad degree, got a job with an organization that worked to prevent wrongful convictions. He and Emma got married, invited Mom to the wedding. She went, cried through the whole ceremony, and thanked them afterward for giving her more grace than she deserved. You've earned a little grace, Emma told her. Keep earning it. On the 10-year anniversary of that night when Jasper showed up at our door, Mom wrote him a letter. She didn't try to apologize again or rehash old territory. She just thanked him for giving her a chance to be better and told him she thought about him often, hoped he was happy. His response came a week later. I am happy, and I hope you are too. We've both earned it. Mom framed that letter next to the one from years ago. So I remember, she said, where I started and where I ended up.
My fiancé forgot to end the call, and I overheard a heartbreaking conversation with his family that changed everything. I was supposed to get married last week. Didn't happen because I left the night before. I'm 26. He's 26, and we've been together for 3 years. We have twin boys who just turned 1. When I found out I was pregnant, he immediately wanted me to get rid of them. Not just suggested it, demanded it multiple times. I told him flat out that I was having these babies with or without him. I even said I wouldn't ask for child support if he wanted to walk away. I've always had a strong maternal instinct, and the timing felt right for me. I was ready to be a mom, even if it meant doing it alone. He needed time to think. I gave him 3 days. On day 3, I was literally about to break up with him when he said he'd changed his mind, that he wanted to be there. Throughout the pregnancy, he was great. Went to every appointment, rubbed my feet, built the cribs. When the twins arrived, which we definitely weren't expecting, he stepped up. I honestly don't think I could have managed 2 newborns alone, so I was grateful he stayed. For months, he was everything a father should be. Changed diapers at 3 a.m., walked them around the apartment when they wouldn't stop crying, sang to them. 6 months after they were born, he proposed. It was beautiful. He did it in our living room while both boys were asleep in their cribs. I said yes without hesitation. It felt like we'd survived the hardest part together, and now we were ready for forever. We spent 6 months planning this wedding. My parents adored him. My friends kept saying how lucky I was. I believed them. The night before our wedding, we stayed at separate places. I was at our apartment. He went to his parents' house a few blocks away. After dinner, he called me, told me he loved me, that he couldn't wait to see me walk down the aisle, that tomorrow would be the best day of our lives. I got emotional. We stayed on the phone for 20 minutes just talking about our future. When we said goodbye, I waited for him to hang up. He didn't. I heard rustling, then his dad's voice. Was that her? My fiancé sounded different. Flat. Yeah, I should have hung up, but something in his tone made me stay on the line. His mom chimed in. Then my fiancé said, "Tell her what, Mom?" His dad's voice got firmer. That you're only going through with this because you feel trapped. Son, we raised you better than to marry someone out of obligation. My heart stopped. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. His mom continued softer now. Those boys are adorable. We love them. But sweetheart, this isn't the life you wanted. You're only 26. You have your whole life ahead of you. You could still walk away and start fresh somewhere else. There was a long pause. Then my fiancé spoke. I know. Trust me, I know. But what choice do I have? If I leave now, she'll drag me through court. Child support would destroy me financially. At least if I marry her, I have some control over my own money. And legally, it's easier to deal with. His dad laughed. Not a happy laugh, a bitter one. So, you're going to spend the rest of your life pretending? That's not fair to anyone, especially those kids. My fiancé's voice cracked. I don't know what else to do. I made my choice when I agreed to stay. I just have to live with it now. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I stood there in our bedroom, the one we'd shared for 3 years, and felt like I couldn't breathe. The twins were asleep in the nursery. I went in, looked at their tiny faces, and something inside me just snapped into focus. I wasn't going to let my sons grow up with a father who saw them as a trap. I packed quietly. 2 bags for me, 1 bag of their essentials, diapers, formula, their favorite stuffed animals. I wrote a note and left it on the kitchen counter. Overheard everything. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. I drove to my parents' house at 2 a.m., with 2 crying babies in the back seat. My dad met me at the door, but instead of comforting me, he looked angry in a way I'd never seen. He said my fiancé had called him right after I left, told him I'd had some kind of breakdown and stolen the babies, that I wasn't stable. My dad actually believed him because apparently my fiancé had been building this narrative for weeks, telling my parents I'd been acting erratic, forgetting things, getting too emotional. Then my dad said something that made my blood turn to ice. He'd already called my fiancé back and told him where we were, and my fiancé was on his way with a police officer and emergency custody papers he'd somehow filed 2 days ago. I stared at my dad like I'd never seen him before. The porch light made his face look harsh, unfamiliar. Behind him, I could see my mom in the hallway wringing her hands. What did you do? My voice came out flat. Finn called us 3 hours ago, my dad said. Said you'd been having episodes, getting confused. He was worried about the boys' safety. Episodes. The word hung in the air like poison. Finn had been planning this. Not just the conversation I'd overheard. He'd been systematically laying groundwork to make me look unstable. I thought back over the past 2 weeks. The way he'd asked my mom if I seemed forgetful when we had dinner. How he'd mentioned to my dad that I'd been crying a lot. The time he told my best friend Vera that I'd been talking about feeling overwhelmed. He'd been building a case. I'm not having episodes, I said. My hands were still shaking. In the car, Mateo started crying louder. I overheard him tonight. He doesn't want to marry me. He sees the boys as a trap. He told his parents he's only going through with it for financial control. My dad's expression didn't change. Honey, that doesn't make sense. Finn loves those boys. He's been nothing but dedicated. Because he's scared of child support, I said. Dad, I heard him. His exact words. My mom finally spoke from the doorway. Maybe you misunderstood. You've been so stressed with wedding planning and the babies. It's 2 a.m. Maybe we should all just calm down and talk about this in the morning. That's when I saw headlights turn onto their street. 2 vehicles. A police cruiser and Finn's black Honda. My stomach dropped. You need to let me in, I said. Right now. My dad didn't move. Finn has temporary custody papers. The judge signed them yesterday as an emergency order. He showed me a copy over the phone. If you're not letting him see his sons, you could get arrested. Yesterday, my voice cracked. He filed custody papers the day before our wedding. The cars pulled up. I watched Finn get out, his face arranged in this expression of concern that I now recognized as completely fake. The police officer was a woman, maybe in her 40s, with her hand resting on her belt. Finn walked up the driveway. Josie, thank God. Are the boys okay? I wanted to scream. Instead, I said very clearly, don't come near me. The officer stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm Officer Alvarez. I need to see the children. They're in the car, I said. They're fine. They're with their mother. Mr. Brennan has emergency custody papers signed by Judge Northfield, Officer Alvarez said. Her voice was professional but not unkind. Can I see the babies? My dad was already walking toward my car. I watched him open the back door and start unbuckling Mateo's car seat. My mom got Silas. No, I said. No, you can't just take them. This is insane. He filed those papers as insurance before our wedding. He's not concerned about their safety. He's covering his ass. Josie's been under a lot of stress, Finn said to Officer Alvarez. His voice was so gentle, so concerned. She left without telling me where she was going. I woke up, and she was just gone with both boys. No note, no message. I've been terrified. I left a note, I said, on the kitchen counter. It said I overheard everything and my lawyer would be in touch. There was no note, Finn said. He looked at Officer Alvarez. I looked everywhere. He'd taken it. Of course he'd taken it. My dad carried Mateo up the driveway. My son was still crying, reaching for me. Something in my chest shattered. The custody order is temporary, Officer Alvarez said to me. It's just for 72 hours until there can be a full hearing. You're not losing your children. But right now, legally, Mr. Brennan has the right to take them. Based on what? I demanded. What evidence did he show the judge? Finn pulled out his phone. I have texts from her friends saying she's been overwhelmed. Voice messages from her mother expressing concern. I have documentation from her doctor about postpartum depression screening. My doctor. I'd filled out a standard questionnaire at my 6-week checkup. It was routine. Every new mother does it. I'd scored a 4 out of 30. Barely anything. But he'd kept it. He'd kept that paperwork. This is kidnapping, I said. My voice was getting louder. This is parental alienation. This is… Ma'am, I need you to calm down, Officer Alvarez said. And that's when I realized I'd already lost. Because everything I did now, every word I said, every emotion I showed, would be used as evidence that I was unstable. If I cried, I was hysterical. If I yelled, I was aggressive. If I stayed calm, I was cold and detached. Finn had built a perfect trap. My mom brought Silas over. He was sleeping, his little fist curled against his cheek. I reached for him, and my mom actually stepped back. Maybe it's best if Finn takes them tonight, she said quietly. Just until everyone calms down. You can see them tomorrow. They're nursing, I said. My voice broke. Silas still nurses at night. He's going to wake up in 2 hours and I won't be there. I have formula, Finn said. It'll be okay. Officer Alvarez looked between us. I could see her making calculations, weighing risks. Young mother, middle of the night, high emotion, father with custody papers and police escort. Mr. Brennan, you can take the children, she said. Miss Harding, I strongly suggest you contact a family law attorney first thing in the morning. The hearing is scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. at the county courthouse. Monday. Today was Friday. That meant 3 days without my babies. I watched Finn take both car seats to his vehicle. My dad helped him secure them. My mom stood on the porch, her arms crossed. Officer Alvarez gave me a card with case numbers and court information. Then they were gone. Finn's taillights disappeared around the corner with my entire world strapped into his back seat. I stood in my parents' driveway until I couldn't see the cars anymore. My arms felt empty. My chest felt empty. Everything felt empty. Come inside, my mom said. We'll make tea. I turned to look at her. You gave him my babies. We didn't have a choice, honey. He had legal papers. He manipulated all of you, I said. For weeks. He made you think I was falling apart so that when this moment came, you'd question me instead of him. My dad rubbed his face. Josie, I know you're upset, but Finn has been nothing but concerned about you. Even tonight he wasn't angry. He was just worried. Because he's a liar, I said. Because he's been lying this entire time. To me, to you, to everyone. But I could see it in their faces. They didn't believe me. Or worse, they didn't want to believe me because believing me meant admitting they'd been fooled. I got back in my car. My mom called after me, but I didn't stop. I drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town and sat in a booth in the back, staring at my phone. It was 3:47 a.m. I pulled up my contacts and found Vera's number. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Josie, what's wrong? And then I told her everything. The overheard conversation, Finn's parents, the custody papers, my parents' betrayal. Vera listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm so sorry, she finally said. But I need to tell you something. Finn called me last Tuesday. He said you'd been acting strange, forgetting conversations, getting really emotional over small things. He asked if I'd noticed anything. What did you say? I said you seemed fine to me. A little tired, but you have twin babies. Who wouldn't be tired? She paused. But Josie, he recorded the call. He asked me leading questions about your stress levels and whether I thought you were handling motherhood okay. I didn't realize at the time, but he was building a case. He recorded you? I heard the beep. I thought it was just a bad connection. But thinking back, he was definitely recording. I pressed my forehead against the cool diner table. He planned this. All of it. What do you need? Vera asked. Tell me what to do. I need a lawyer. The best family lawyer you know. My sister's firm handles family law. I'll text you her partner's emergency number. His name is Gideon Morris. He's expensive, but he's brutal in court. I don't care about the cost. I need my boys back. I hung up and waited for Vera's text. It came through 2 minutes later along with a message. Call him now. I already texted him. He's expecting you. Gideon Morris answered on the first ring, which told me Vera had actually woken him up and explained the situation. His voice was gravelly but alert. Miss Harding. Vera gave me the basics. Tell me everything start to finish. So I did. For the second time that night, I recounted the phone call, the conversation I'd overheard, Finn's parents, the custody papers, my parents' betrayal. Gideon listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Okay, he finally said. First, stop talking to your parents. They're witnesses now and they're not on your side. They're my parents. They're witnesses who handed your children to the opposing party. You can reconcile later. Right now you need to think strategically. My throat tightened. Okay. Second, I need you to write down everything you remember from that phone call. Exact quotes if possible. Time, duration, everything. Can you do that? Yes. Third, do you have any proof that Finn didn't want these children? Texts, emails, witnesses to conversations? I thought back. My best friend from college, Nina. She was there when I told Finn I was pregnant. She heard him demand I get an abortion. She heard me tell him I'd do it alone. Get me her contact information. Anyone else? My OBGYN, Dr. Reyes. Finn missed the first 3 appointments. She asked me if I had support at home. Good. I'll need her records. What about the pregnancy and first few months? Any evidence he wasn't involved? He wasn't at the anatomy scan. He missed the hospital tour. He didn't come to the first pediatrician appointment. I was remembering now. Things I'd dismissed as him being busy with work. He didn't sign up for the birthing class. I went alone. Better and better. Now, this conversation you overheard. Is there any chance it was recorded? Any chance your phone captured it? I pulled up my call log. The call with Finn had lasted 23 minutes. Long after we'd said goodbye. It might be in my phone records, I said. The call stayed connected. Don't touch anything on your phone. Don't delete anything. Don't add anything. I need that phone exactly as it is. Can you bring it to my office at 8 a.m.? Yes. And Miss Harding? This is important. From this moment forward, you are calm, collected, and completely stable. No emotional outbursts. No social media posts. No text to Finn beyond logistical information about the children. Everything you do will be scrutinized. Understand? I understand. Good. Get some sleep if you can. I'll see you in 5 hours. He hung up. I sat in that diner booth until the sun started rising, writing down every word I could remember from Finn's conversation with his parents. By the time I walked into Gideon Morris's office at 8 a.m., I had 4 single-spaced pages of documentation. His office was downtown in a brick building with his name on a brass plate. The receptionist, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, took one look at me and said, "You must be Josie. Go right in. He's expecting you." Gideon's office was all dark wood and law books. He was maybe 50, with gray at his temples and reading glasses perched on his nose. He gestured for me to sit. "Let's see what we have." I handed him my phone and the written documentation. He read through it slowly, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. "This is good," he said. "Very good. You have exact quotes, timestamps, context. Now, let's talk about the custody hearing on Monday." "I need to get them back before Monday," I said. "They're 1-year-old. They don't understand why I'm not there." "I know. But here's the reality. Finn has temporary custody papers signed by a judge. To overturn that, we need to prove he obtained them fraudulently or that they're not in the children's best interest. We have 3 days to build that case. So what do? We get affidavits. From Nina about his reaction to the pregnancy. From Dr. Reyes about his absence during prenatal care. From your pediatrician about his involvement, or lack thereof. In the first year, we subpoena your phone records to prove that call stayed connected. We document everything he said to your parents and friends about your supposed instability. And we present it all to Judge Northfield on Monday morning. What if he's good to them this weekend? What if he plays the perfect dad? Then we show the judge that he's capable of playing a role when it suits him. That the man who demanded you abort these children suddenly became Father of the Year only after you made it clear you were having them with or without him. That he proposed not out of love, but out of financial calculation. That everything he's done has been strategic, not emotional. I nodded. My chest hurt. Can I see them? Before Monday? Gideon's expression softened slightly. The custody order doesn't prevent visitation, but I'd advise against it right now. Anything you do, any emotion you show, will be documented and used against you. Wait until Monday. Win the hearing. Then you'll have them back. 3 days had never seemed so long. I spent Friday gathering documentation. Nina sent me screenshots of texts from 3 years ago where she'd called Finn an asshole for demanding I abort.
Back to Caldwell instead of keeping Susan's maiden name as her middle name. "I don't want anything connecting me to her anymore," Ashley said. "I know that sounds harsh, but I mean it. She made me into someone I hate. The Florida vacation home deposit was gone. The developer kept it as liquidated damages. David and Susan lost $75,000 in a single afternoon. Their credit cards were all maxed out, and the companies started calling for payment. Susan tried to negotiate, but they wouldn't budge. The truck got repossessed. Their fancy furniture was sold at auction to pay debts. Within 2 weeks, they'd gone from living in a $500,000 house to facing foreclosure. And through it all, Detective Rosenthal kept digging into my mother's death. She called me every few days with updates. We found 3 neighbors who remember hearing screaming that night. One of them almost called 911 but decided not to because the screaming stopped. Another neighbor saw David carrying grocery bags into the house around 6 p.m. Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway yet, But David told police Jennifer had been home all afternoon, so he lied about the timeline. He lied about a lot of things. Detective Rosenthal paused. We also found Jennifer's best friend from 2002, a woman named Carmen Ruiz. She says Jennifer called her the morning of the day she died. Jennifer told Carmen she was planning to leave David and asked if she could stay with Carmen for a few days. Carmen said yes. They made plans for Jennifer to come over that evening with you. Jennifer never showed up because she was already dead. Because David killed her before she could leave. Can you prove it? We're building a case. The journal entries, the lies about the timeline, the neighbor testimonies, the fact that Jennifer told multiple people she was planning to leave. It's all circumstantial, but it's adding up. Detective Rosenthal's voice hardened. I've seen men walk free on less evidence than this, and I've seen men go to prison on more. It's going to come down to whether the district attorney thinks a jury will convict. When will you know? Few more weeks. Maybe a month. We're being thorough. I was staying at Margaret's house still. Reporters had found my old apartment and were camped outside. My landlord called to say I'd been evicted for breaking the no media circus clause that apparently existed in my lease. I didn't fight it. Margaret's guest room was bigger and safer, and I didn't want to go back to that studio above the laundromat anyway. But I couldn't stay with Margaret forever. So I drove out to Grandma's house one afternoon and walked through it with fresh eyes. It was too big for one person. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen that hadn't been updated since 1995. But it was paid off. It was mine. And my mother had lived here once, before she married David. I found more of her things in the attic. Boxes labeled Jennifer's belongings. Clothes that smelled like dust and old perfume. Books with her name written inside the covers. A jewelry box with cheap costume jewelry and one real piece, a silver locket. Inside was a photo of her holding me as a newborn. We were both sleeping. She looked peaceful. I took the locket and wore it. It felt like having her close. Ashley came by one day while I was cleaning out the garage. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked more real than I'd ever seen her. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. The night Mom showed us the photo of Jennifer with the bruise. Logan and I went back to the house after you left. We wanted to get some of our things before the bank took the house. And we found something. What? She pulled a small notebook from her purse. Mom's diary, from 2002. We weren't supposed to know about it, but Logan found it hidden in the back of her closet. My stomach dropped. What's in it? Ashley opened to a page marked with a sticky note. It's dated the 12th of June, 2002, the day Jennifer died. She started reading. David called me at work today, frantic. He said Jennifer fell down the stairs and died. He said it was an accident. He was crying on the phone, but when I got to the house, he wasn't crying anymore. He was calm, too calm. He told me we needed to get our story straight. He said if people knew Jennifer was planning to leave him, it would look bad. He said we needed to tell everyone that things were fine between them. I asked him what really happened, and he just looked at me and said, she was going to take my son away from me. I couldn't let that happen. Then he told me to go home and act normal. He said if I told anyone what he'd said, he'd make sure I never saw Logan again. He was 3 years old then. I believed David would do it. So I kept quiet. The notebook shook in Ashley's hands. She kept quiet for 23 years. She knew what he did, and she said nothing. She helped him cover it up. She made you think you were adopted so you'd never question the story. She turned you into the outsider so no one would listen if you ever figured out the truth. Where is this notebook now? Ashley handed it to me. Give it to the police. Give them everything. Let them see what kind of people our parents really are. This implicates Susan too. She could go to prison. Good, Ashley said flatly. She deserves it. I called Detective Rosenthal. She came to the house within an hour and took the notebook as evidence. She read the entry Ashley had marked and her expression went cold and hard. This is a confession, she said. Susan Caldwell admitted David killed Jennifer and she helped cover it up. That makes her an accessory after the fact at minimum. Possibly conspiracy. What happens now? Now I arrest both of them. It happened fast after that. Police showed up at the foreclosed house where David and Susan were still living, squatting essentially since the bank hadn't physically removed them yet. David was arrested for second-degree murder. Susan was arrested for accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. Both were denied bail. The district attorney held a press conference announcing the arrests and the reopening of Jennifer Caldwell's death investigation. I watched it on Margaret's TV with Ashley sitting beside me. Logan had refused to come. He was still processing everything and didn't want to watch his parents get destroyed on live television. This is justice for Jennifer, the DA said, standing at a podium with Detective Rosenthal beside her. For 23 years, her death was written off as a tragic accident. But new evidence shows that Jennifer was the victim of domestic violence and that her husband, David Caldwell, murdered her to prevent her from leaving him and taking their son. His wife, Susan Caldwell, knew about the murder and helped him cover it up. Both will face the full extent of the law. Reporters shouted questions. Is the son involved? Did he know about the murder? The DA shut that down fast. Austin Caldwell was 2 years old when his mother was killed. He is a victim in this case, not a suspect. He recently learned the truth about his mother's death through documentation left by his grandmother, who suspected foul play for years but lacked proof until recently. More questions. What about the will? The inheritance? The DA looked irritated. This case is about murder, not money. But yes, Eleanor Caldwell left her estate to her grandson Austin after discovering that her son and daughter-in-law had been abusing him for years and lying about his parentage. That information came to light during the investigation and provided additional motive for the defendant's behavior. Ashley turned off the TV. "It's really over." "No," I said. "It's just starting. Now comes the trial." The trial didn't start for another 8 months. Pre-trial motions, discovery, jury selection. I spent that time trying to build a life that felt normal. I quit my job at the auto parts store and enrolled in community college to finish my degree. I started seeing a therapist twice a week to process everything that had happened. Margaret helped me set up the inheritance properly, investments and accounts, and a budget that would let me live comfortably without blowing through everything like my parents had. I stayed in Grandma's house. I renovated the kitchen and updated the bathrooms and turned one of the bedrooms into an office. I planted new flowers in the garden and fixed the porch railing and painted the shutters. I made it mine. Ashley visited often. Logan came by once, awkward and guilty, and we talked for hours about what it was like growing up in that house with those parents. He cried a lot. He apologized for every time he'd gone along with their cruelty. I told him I forgave him. I wasn't sure I meant it yet, but I wanted to. Maybe someday I would. The trial started in March. I sat in the courtroom every single day. Margaret sat beside me. Ashley came when she could get time off work. Logan never showed up. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. They presented Jennifer's journal entries, the neighbor testimonies, the timeline discrepancies. The forensic evidence showing Jennifer's injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall. Carmen Ruiz testified about the phone call from Jennifer that morning, about the plans they'd made. The original coroner testified about the old bruises he'd found on Jennifer's body. Susan's diary was entered as evidence, and the entry was read aloud in court. David sat at the defense table looking older than his 54 years. Gray, thin. His lawyer argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the journal entries proved Jennifer was clumsy and accident-prone, that the timeline discrepancies were the result of trauma and poor memory, that Susan's diary entry was taken out of context. But then the prosecution called Susan to the stand. She'd taken a plea deal, testify against David, and she'd get 7 years instead of 20. She took the deal. She sat in the witness box in an orange jumpsuit and told the truth. David called me the afternoon Jennifer died. He told me Jennifer was leaving him and taking Austin. He said he couldn't let that happen. He said he'd pushed her down the stairs during an argument. He said it was an accident, but he pushed her. He admitted it to me. Then he asked me to help him make it look like she'd fallen. He told me to back up his story that everything was fine in their marriage. He said if I didn't help him, he'd tell police I was involved too. I was scared, so I helped him lie. David's lawyer tried to break her testimony on cross-examination, but Susan held firm. She'd made her choice. She was going to save herself by burying him. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, the forewoman stood and read the verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of child endangerment for leaving a toddler in the house with his mother's body for an hour before calling 911. Guilty of evidence tampering. David showed no emotion. He just stared at the table in front of him while the judge set a sentencing date. 6 weeks later, he was sentenced to 35 years to life. Susan got 7 years as per her plea agreement. Both would be eligible for parole eventually, but the odds of them getting out early were slim. I didn't feel victorious when it was over. I felt empty, tired, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that now that it was gone, I didn't know what to do with my arms. Ashley hugged me outside the courthouse. "It's over," she said again. This time I believed her. I went back to Grandma's house and sat in the garden with the locket around my neck. "Mom," I said out loud, "they can't hurt anyone else now. You can rest." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. Somewhere a bird was singing. The sun was warm on my face, and for the first time in 23 years, I felt like I could breathe. Margaret helped me set up a foundation in my mother's name, the Jennifer Caldwell Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors. We funded shelters and legal aid and counseling services. We helped women leave dangerous situations. We made sure they had the resources Jennifer never had. Ashley became the foundation's first employee. She coordinated with the shelters and managed the grant applications. She threw herself into the work like she was trying to make up for all the years she'd stayed silent. Maybe she was. Logan spiraled. He moved to another state and cut off contact with everyone. Last I heard, he was working construction and drinking too much. Ashley worried about him, but he wouldn't take her calls. Some damage is too deep to fix quickly. I finished my degree, business management. I got a job at a nonprofit doing financial planning and discovered I was good at it. Good at helping people manage their money. Good at teaching them how to budget and save and build a life that didn't depend on anyone else. I started dating someone I met at school. Her name was Riley Chen, and she was studying social work, and she didn't know anything about my past until I told her. She listened to the whole story without interrupting, and when I was done, she said, "Your mom would be proud of who you became." I cried. I hadn't cried through the entire trial, but I cried then, sitting in a coffee shop with this girl I barely knew, because she'd said exactly what I needed to hear. 2 years later, I proposed to Riley in Grandma's garden. She said yes. We got married in the same garden with Margaret officiating and Ashley as the maid of honor. Logan didn't come, but he sent a card with a short message. "I'm happy for you. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm working on being better. Love, Logan." It was enough. Riley moved into the house with me and we made it ours together. We painted the walls and updated the landscaping and turned the office into a nursery when Riley got pregnant. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in October. We named her Eleanor Jennifer Caldwell, Ellie for short. I held her in the hospital and looked at her tiny face and made a promise. You will always know you're loved. You will always know you're wanted. You will never doubt that you belong. Riley smiled at me from the bed, exhausted and happy. She's perfect. Yeah, I agreed. She is. Margaret came to visit the next day. She was 70 now, officially retired, but still sharp as ever. She held Ellie and cried, "Your grandmother would have loved her." "I think she does," I said. 3 years after that, David had his first parole hearing. It was denied. 5 years after that, he had another one, also denied. Susan got out after serving her full 7 years. She moved to another state, and I never heard from her again. Ashley said Susan tried to contact her once, but Ashley didn't respond. Some bridges you burn completely. I saw David once after the trial. I'd gone to the prison to give a victim impact statement for his parole hearing. He looked old, broken, nothing like the man who'd terrorized my mother and made my childhood hell. He asked to speak to me before I left. The guard let us talk through the glass partition with phones. "I'm sorry," David said. His voice was hoarse. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry for what I did to your mother. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was angry and bitter, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you hate me so much?" "Because you looked like her," he said simply. "Every time I saw you, I saw Jennifer. I saw her eyes and her smile, and I remembered what I'd done. So I tried to make you disappear. I tried to erase you, but you wouldn't disappear. You kept existing, kept surviving, and it drove me crazy. I'm glad I survived," I said. "Me too," David said quietly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you got the inheritance. I'm glad you got the truth. And I'm glad you're living the life Jennifer wanted for you." I hung up the phone and walked out. I never went back. Ellie is 7 now. She's smart and funny and kind. She loves dinosaurs and soccer and reading. Riley and I had another baby 2 years ago, a boy we named James after Riley's grandfather. They play together in the same garden where I proposed, where I scattered some of Grandma's ashes, where I sometimes sit and think about my mother and everything she lost. Ashley is married now too. She met a man named Marcus, who works as a teacher and treats her like she's precious. They have a daughter named Sophie, who's best friends with Ellie. The cousins play together at family dinners that happen at my house every Sunday. Real family dinners, the kind I never had growing up. Logan came back eventually. He got sober and moved to a town an hour away and reached out tentatively. Ashley met with him first. Then me. He's different now. Quieter. More thoughtful. He works as a counselor at a rehab facility and sponsors other men trying to get clean. He comes to Sunday dinners sometimes. It's still awkward, but we're trying. The foundation has helped over 3,000 women leave abusive situations. We've expanded to 4 states. Ashley runs it full-time now, and she's brilliant at it. She speaks at conferences and trains shelter staff and fights for better laws. She's become the person she wishes she'd been when we were kids. I'm 30 now. I have a family, a career, a life that feels real and solid and mine. I don't think about David and Susan much anymore. They're footnotes in my story, not the main characters. But I think about my mother every day. I think about her strength in documenting the abuse, her courage in planning to leave, the choice she made to protect me even when it cost her everything. I think about how she never got to see me grow up, but how everything I am is because of her. Sometimes Ellie asks about her grandmother, Jennifer. We've told her age-appropriate versions of the story. That Grandma Jennifer died when Daddy was little, that she loved Daddy very much, that she was brave and kind. One day, when Ellie's older, I'll tell her the whole truth. I'll show her the journal entries and the photos and explain what happened. I'll make sure she understands that her grandmother was a survivor who fought back the only way she could, that she documented the truth so that someday, somehow, justice would be possible. But for now, Ellie just knows that we light a candle for Grandma Jennifer on her birthday every year, that we visit her grave and leave flowers, that her picture hangs in our living room next to Grandma Eleanor's. Riley comes up behind me while I'm standing at the stove making dinner. She wraps her arms around my waist and rests her chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? Just how different everything is, I say. How different it could have been. But this is how it is, Riley says. You made it this way. You and Ashley and your mom and your grandma. All of you fighting for something better. I turn around and kiss her. You're right. Ellie runs in, demanding to know when dinner will be ready. James toddles behind her, barely keeping up. The kitchen is warm and full of noise and life. This is my family. The one I chose. The one I built from nothing. And somewhere, I think my mother is proud. The inheritance gave me money and security. The trial gave me justice. But the years since then gave me something more important. They gave me peace. They gave me the understanding that I'm not defined by the people who hurt me. That I can be more than my trauma. That I can build something good from something terrible. I'm not the adopted kid who wasn't good enough anymore. I'm not the outsider who didn't belong. I'm Austin Caldwell. I'm a husband and a father and a son who finally knows his whole story. The good and the bad. The beautiful and the broken. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Update 1. The trial aftermath. The anniversary of David's sentencing passed quietly. I didn't mark it on the calendar, but I knew what day it was when I woke up. Riley noticed me staring at my coffee longer than usual. You okay? Yeah, just thinking. She knew better than to push. That's one of the things I love about her. She understands that some thoughts need space. Work kept me busy. The foundation was expanding into 2 more states, and Ashley needed my help with the financial planning. We were on a video call going over budgets when her assistant interrupted. I'm sorry, but there's someone here insisting on seeing you. She says she's your mother. Ashley's face went pale on the screen. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's urgent. She says it's about Logan. My stomach dropped. Put her on speaker. A moment later, Susan's voice filled the room. Ashley, please. I know you don't want to see me, but Logan is in the hospital. He tried to kill himself 3 days ago. They don't think he's going to make it. The video call ended. Ashley was already grabbing her keys. I told her I'd meet her there. The hospital was 2 hours away in the town where Logan had been living. Ashley and I arrived within minutes of each other. Susan was in the waiting room looking nothing like the woman I remembered. She'd aged 20 years in the 7 she'd been in prison. Her hair was gray and stringy. Her clothes looked secondhand. She stood when she saw us. Don't, Ashley said. Don't say anything. Just tell us which room. ICU, 3rd floor, room 307. Susan's voice cracked. They said family only and I'm still his mother, so they let me in, but he won't wake up. He won't. We walked past her to the elevators. I didn't look back. Logan was on a ventilator. His face was bruised and swollen. His arms were wrapped in bandages. The nurse who met us was kind but direct. He took pills and alcohol. His roommate found him and called 911, but it had been a while. They did what they could, but there's significant liver damage. Brain activity is minimal. Ashley sank into the chair beside his bed. She took his hand carefully, avoiding the IV lines. Logan, it's Ashley. I'm here. Austin's here too. You have to wake up. Please wake up. But he didn't wake up. Not that day. Not the next. On the 3rd day, his doctor sat us down and explained that Logan was brain dead. The machines were keeping his body alive, but he was already gone. Ashley sobbed. Austin, what do we do? We let him go, I said quietly. We let him rest. Susan appeared in the doorway. She'd been hovering in the waiting room for days. Let me say goodbye first, please. Ashley looked at me. I nodded. We stepped outside while Susan went in. Through the window, I watched her collapse beside Logan's bed, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Whatever she said to him, we couldn't hear it. After 10 minutes, she came out. Her eyes were red and swollen. I did this to him. I destroyed my own son. You destroyed a lot of things, I said. She looked at me like she wanted to argue. Then she just nodded and walked away. We withdrew life support that evening. Ashley and I stayed with Logan until the end. It didn't take long. 1 minute the machines were beeping and his chest was rising and falling. The next minute everything was quiet. Ashley cried herself sick. I held her and stared at my brother, the one I'd barely known, and felt nothing but waste. What a waste of a life. What a waste of potential. Logan could have been anything. Instead, he'd been crushed under the weight of who our parents were. The funeral was small. Me, Ashley, Riley, Marcus, Margaret. Susan came but stayed in the back. She didn't approach us. She didn't try to speak. She just stood there looking hollowed out and old. We buried Logan next to Grandma Eleanor. Ashley wanted him close to someone good, someone who would have loved him if she'd had the chance. After the funeral, I found Susan sitting on a bench near the parking lot. I sat down beside her without saying anything. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything about you at all. That's worse, she said. Probably. She wiped her eyes. I was jealous of Jennifer. Did you know that? She was beautiful and kind, and everyone loved her. When David married me 6 months after she died, people whispered about it. They said it was too soon. They said I was a rebound. And they were right. David never loved me the way he loved her. He was always comparing me to her, always finding me lacking. So when you came along, looking just like her, I hated you for it. I hated that you were proof of David's real love, proof that I was second choice. That's not my fault, I said. I know. Susan's voice was barely a whisper. I know it wasn't your fault, but I punished you anyway. I made you into the enemy so I didn't have to face what I really was. A woman who married a murderer and helped him hide it. A woman who destroyed her own stepson to protect a lie. A woman who's lost everything because she couldn't stand to lose anything. Logan didn't deserve what you did to him. No, she agreed. He didn't. Neither did Ashley. Neither did you. I destroyed my whole family because I was weak and scared and jealous, and now I have to live with that. Good, I said, standing up. You should live with it. You should carry it every day for the rest of your life. Maybe that's your punishment. Not prison. Just knowing what you did and who you really are. I walked away and left her on that bench. I never saw her again. Ashley spiraled after Logan's death. She blamed herself for not reaching out more, for not trying harder to help him. I reminded her that Logan was an adult who made his own choices. That we can't save people who don't want to be saved. But grief doesn't listen to logic. She threw herself deeper into the foundation work. 16-hour days, weekends, late nights. Marcus worried. I worried. Finally, Riley sat her down and talked to her like the social worker she was. You're running from the grief. You're trying to work yourself to death to avoid feeling the pain. But it doesn't work that way. The pain doesn't go away. You just get exhausted and the pain is still there. Ashley broke down. I don't know how to live with this. I don't know how to accept that Logan's gone and it's because of what our parents did to us, to all of us. Riley held her while she cried. Then she set Ashley up with a therapist, the same one I'd been seeing for years. A woman named Dr. Patricia Hammond who specialized in family trauma. Ashley started going twice a week. Slowly, she started to stabilize. She cut her work hours back to something reasonable. She and Marcus started trying to have a baby. She planted a tree in her backyard in Logan's memory, and she talked to it sometimes when she was sad. Life moved forward the way it always does. Whether you're ready or not, whether you want it to or not. 6 months after Logan died, I got a call from Detective Rosenthal. She'd retired from the police force but kept in touch occasionally. Austin, I need to tell you something. David filed an appeal. My blood went cold. On what grounds? Ineffective counsel. He's claiming his lawyer didn't defend him properly, and he deserves a new trial. Will it work? Probably not. But it means the case will be reviewed. It means you might have to testify again. I wanted to give you a heads up. I told Riley that night. She was furious. He's already in prison. What more does he want? He wants out. He wants another chance to lie his way free.